Jen?
Yeah.
So in saying that, today's class I've called, so what I do for, since we're in COVID, I give every class a theme. So for example, on Wednesday night, our class was happy hamstrings. So it was everything about the hamstrings. So today's class I've called Safe Saturday. Because I've got to play it safe with you, because most people are coming back for the first time, for a while, or they haven't practiced for a little bit, and they really don't want me to go out too hard for them. So I'm going to be really kind and win some points, and we're going to go safe. So it'll be fairly stretchy based, won't be anything too antsy-fancy, but it'll get us into the groove of it all. So we know, obviously, when we practice, that it's our own personal practice. So whilst I might show you something, you think, oh, I can't really do that, but I'm going to give it my best shot. I'm going to try and get my head to my knees, just like Lisa does. It's your practice, so don't push to get somewhere where your body's not going to let you go to today. Okay, so no one judges, no one cares what you, in the nicest way, no one really cares what you look like, because it's what your body can do for you today. Okay, that's one of the biggest things that we teach and what we learn in the yoga practice is not to judge ourselves, and just to know that every day we wake up in a different body. Every day it wants to do something a little bit different for us. Some days it's very cooperative, other days not so cooperative. So we'll leave our window open here just to get some airflow. We do start in pranayama. Some people will sit in pranayama, others will lie down. Take yourself to where it feels comfortable for you. This is usually just a little 5-minute stint of breath work. It really is just to get us centered. It's to bring us to the mat, to get those little brains less busy. So we take a moment here as we settle in to bring the breath very, very slowly in and out through the nose. We want to notice the slowness of each of our breaths. Perhaps we even notice the smoothness of each of the breaths. The breath isn't rushed. It just comes in nice and evenly, nice and smooth, nice and steady. The exhalation follows the inhalation in the idea of it being just smooth and steady and even on the way back out. And we just want to do a little check-in at the end of the breaths, that there's no strain or force to our breathing. And that just means keeping our neck, means keeping our throat, facial muscles all nice and soft. That on the inhalation that our chest and our belly will rise and they will also expand, so there's this fullness that comes to the lungs. And the exhalation is an emptying. Perhaps we could even imagine that the lungs are like two sponges that we want to wring out, perhaps emptying the contents. So it's almost like we want to empty right down to that very last final drop of breath. breath, noticing that your inhalation and your exhalation are both the same length. Keeping that natural flow to the breath, perhaps now inviting in just a little bit of movement. Maybe it's through the fingers and toes, hands or feet. It could be that starting of the adjustment of the eyes, opening and closing back to the right of the room. And then whenever you're ready, if you're not in a seated position, I will get you to come up to sitting, whatever way feels comfortable or right for you. This is called Sukhasana, easy sitting pose, where the legs are crossed. If you feel like the hips are a little tight, you can always come and sit up onto something like this, like a bolster or a tab. You can always use blocks as well. In Sukhasana, we're going to place the palms of the hands down onto the mat and just creep forward. Just walk the hands forward towards the front of your mat, and we just hinge at the hips. And this is a nice start to opening up the lower back, so you might start to feel a little bit of a stretch running across that lumbar, the lower back area. And again, we're really mindful here of just giving a softness to the neck, so we don't have to look at where those hands are. We can just let the head hang and go a little dangly. Take a walk with the hands around towards your right now. This might bring you a little closer to your right leg or your right thigh. And as we do, keep that action of sit bones to floor. It might be that the left one wants to lift off a little, but we really want to roll or reset that left sit bone down towards the floor. Keep the right hand twist, but walk the hands in towards this right leg and come upright. Bring your left hand onto that right knee. Send your right hand around behind you and add a twist. I'm going to turn around to that right hand side. Use that back right hand to take the twist just a little deeper, a little further. Keep hold of the right knee, unravel, but send the right arm up towards the ceiling. And then lean out to your left one here, weighting the right knee down. So now we take ourselves into this little side bend where the right side of the body becomes opened and stretches. Long right arm, nice and snug into the ear. I'm going to reach out through the fingers. Place the right hand on the left knee now. Come upright, so you've got this big X, big cross here at the onto the knees. We're going to imagine we can go into like a cat-cow action here where we exhale, we round, and then we inhale. We go into the arching kind of back. So the exhale takes us into a round or a curved spine. And then inhale takes us into an extended spine. Last one. Release the whole of the legs. Change the legs, so you've got the other one in front. And we'll do the same forward fold. Hinging back at the hips, creeping down through the front, relaxing the head, softening between the thumbs. The walk goes to the left, the little twist one. Breathe in, walk the hands in. Bring the right hand onto the left knee with the left hand sitting behind us. Lengthen through the spine, breathe it out in that twist and rotation. Keep hold of the knee, but unravel out of the twist. Our left arm goes up towards the ceiling. The leans out to the right this time. Left arm into the ear. Reach long with the left arm. Bring the left hand down onto the right knee. Crosses the other way now. In that same cat-cow. One last one. As we finish the very last one, nice straight spine, release the hold onto the legs and uncross the legs. Place the feet flat onto the floor. I'm just going to bring our hands behind us. It will not matter what these arms look like, so whether your fingers are facing out to the side or pointing towards your toes, it won't matter. These are like our little knee floats. We do these often when we lie on our backs. But what it'll do is it starts to get some movement into the hips, but it will also start to stretch over the joint, over the hips, so over that hip flexor joint. So the knees will float to one side, and then they get to float to the other side. Nice, easy job. When they get back over to your left-hand side, we're going to take our left leg and weight the right leg down. And then we're going to start a little taller. So we'll probably sort of out here a little, and we're going to bring ourselves more upright. So as we sit upright, the left leg's weighting the right leg down, the right knee down, and then the right arm's going to lift up off the floor. So what we want to try and do is roll it back down onto the floor. That should make it slightly deeper. And then we could also maybe add a little twist to this one as well, so we can hit right perhaps. So the leg that was weighted down will be this side, but yeah, we get to twist and turn around. Just feeling how that addresses into that bottom a little bit deeper by actively trying to roll it down. Bring the shoulders back to square, and then as the legs come back up, we'll assume a figure four, so we'll just let that ankle stay here onto the knee. We'll reach through, we'll hold onto the shin, so it's the right shin that we're holding onto, and it's probably going to thrust us backwards, so we want to try and use these hands to pull us in more towards that right leg. The left leg's trying to stay away from us, because it's the hip that we're trying to work through here on this left side, the left hip. Hands pull us in, and consciously draw that left leg away from us. We ease back off, slide the right leg long and let this left foot come into the inside of the right thigh. As we rise on the inhale, reaching the arms high, lead with your chest on the exhale and come forward from here. We either get to hold onto the foot or the ankle or the calf. Again, not important where we get to hold onto, but the mechanism of holding onto brings us deeper towards the thigh. So this gives us the ability to lever ourselves slightly closer to that right leg. So here we will start to work into the hamstrings, primarily on this right leg, but a little bit of hip opening going on still as we continue to let this left leg float out to our side. So chest to thigh and crown of the head reaching down as I was trying to be closer towards the foot here. the breath in to lift up nice and slowly. Jump the left leg over the top of the right leg from here. The right arm holds it, brings it into the body. Again, we remind ourselves of not rolling back onto the sit bones, but to lift up tall. The left hand assists us into that same twist. So we can even press quite firmly down with that left foot, so it presses down into the mat as we lift tall and head lift. Breathe in as we ease out of the twist. Now we're going to come into head of the cow. Let's roll ourselves onto this right side a little, and then we flick that right leg around. The leg on top, which should be our left leg, floats down onto the bottom underside leg, onto that right leg. So we're still really dealing with the hip on this left hand side. This is just a little stronger than that figure 4 was. If this ever gets really awkward or uncomfortable, elevation can help. Okay, so a little blank here, anything like that can take the ouch out of this one. We will start with the hands coming towards the floor. If you feel that there's the opportunity to come further, then obviously you can keep folding, but you'll know that as you start coming further down, it's way stronger in that left glute. Again, you just don't know what feels right for you. Yes, we should feel that there's a little conversation going on here in this left hip, but it certainly shouldn't be excruciating. Use the breath in to walk the hands back in. We get to unravel these legs, so that left foot will go back onto the floor. So to the right, both knees will float over to our right now. The right leg will weight the left leg down. Wriggle on in, so rather than leaning out back, we'll walk the hands in. We try to reattach that left bottom closer down there towards our mat, perhaps a little turn with the shoulders as well. Square up the shoulders as we breathe in, roll the legs back to center for figure 4. Up goes that right ankle. Out onto the left, hold the shin. Readjust, bring yourself into it, the leg, work the right knee away. We ease off, the left leg slides, and then the foot comes into the other leg. Breathe in for the lift of the arms to get us out of those hips. Breathe it out to keep leaning with the chest as we come forward. Chest to the thigh. the inhalation, and we're up. Jump the leg over, right over back. Left holds that leg. Once again, we want to glue the right sit bone down, but lift hold so we can get quite deep into that bottom. The right hand spins us around. Right down top, wriggle yourself into that floor so that we can get those sit bones equally onto the floor. It's almost like trying to get the same amount of sort of flesh onto the mat. Give the hips a moment to settle in and get used to where that they are, and if then you're not screaming too much, maybe we can come through the front. It's always different on that second side. It's always a very different story. Use the breath in to walk back up. Unravel the legs and come to a butterfly pose or a cobbler's pose. This is where those two feet come together. And you want to hold the feet into one another. Hands to do that. Walk yourself in, so you wriggle your bum in so that you're more upright, that your pelvis is a little closer towards those feet. As we press the feet together, we draw the knees apart. And we let the weight of gravity extend those legs closer towards the floor. So we try not, it's not a bouncing kind of action. It's more just a weightedness. Letting gravity draw the knees down. And maybe a little elbow to leg if we feel that the groin is happy for us to explore a little bit more with it. Obviously we deepen the stretch by encouraging the knees to not be so springy and want to bounce back. Use the breath in to draw or bring the trunk back up, assist the knees. To come back into close. We can place the soles of the feet flat onto the floor. Take the hands to hold onto the shins. And just hinge back with a straight spine here. And I say that because we want to be mindful as we'll head into boat pose or Navasana, that we don't want to sink. We don't want the spine to collapse or to sag here. It's a matter of keeping a nice long spine and then engaging the core, drawing the belly in. And we move the hands from the shins, so coming underneath the backs of the legs and pulling back a little more. So the further we're starting to get away from the legs, the more that the abdominals need to do some work, and therefore the more that this pose begins to take on that core thing here. Lighten the hold that you might have of the legs, and if you feel okay with it, let go fully. So as we let go, we want to watch that we don't drop and collapse. So the chest still stays lifted, the spine still stays long. Glue your inner thighs together, almost like there's this invisible magnet pulling the inner legs towards one another. And then if you feel like you can run the toes along the floor, so we have less contact on the floor, go to more like a tippy toe. And maybe the feet can come off the floor and just go into this little mini hover here. So all those same principles are still applying here. The legs are feeling like they're being magnetised inwards, or like a Velcro pulling them inwards. The belly's drawing back towards the spine. The breath is still steady. And we make the decision as to when we feel like that we need to rest out of it. So that could be that I'm going to feel like I'm going to lose my balance, or that my back wants to sag a little, and just that the belly's telling me that it's fatigued. Okay, so we'll make that call ourselves, particularly if we start to feel like our form is compromised, that there's that nice rigid structure of a boat, straight lines. We'll take this into the second version. We'll still build on where we just were, which was sliding the hands from shins to pulling the navel towards the spine, engaging more core to bring the hands underneath the backs of the legs. To then maybe lightening the hold or fully letting the hold go. Toes along and perhaps a little higher up with the legs. It's up to you. You could still do half boat, which is what this is here, by holding onto the backs of the legs. It just means that you're using a little more of your arms, a little bit more of the biceps. The less hold we have, the more the belly has to do the work. You can decide where it feels comfortable for you to come down. One last one, and all of the boat poses build onto each other. So if we wanted to keep our boat just here, then we can. If we're up to like our third version, so we might think, oh, you know what, just a light touch, or no, that's it for me. But if you want to keep layering, yep, you go tippy toes, feet hover, or even half. This one's going to be like a split leg where one goes towards the floor and then comes back up. So it's almost like you're doing these little toe tap numbers. So more movement, and we just have to keep a deep control of the core. So the thighs aren't moving, it's just this action from the knees. It's almost like I've got a pin through the two legs. And the legs are kicking. Again, be in charge. So you decide when you think, yep, that's it, I'm losing my nice straight back, or my belly's quivering too much, or that my form's not as accurate as when I first went into it. As we lift the chest from the legs, bring your hands. So this one is a little more sort of precise, that the hands come around and, or the fingers I should say, face the bottom. And the elbows in this one bend so that it's like you are rounding your spine. So we're going into bent arms, almost like you do say some tricep dips. It's the same action. The elbows pull in towards one another and the chest rounds. Then, without straightening your arms, just straighten your spine as though you're puffing your chest upwards towards the ceiling and sort of pressing the chest forward towards your thighs. It should start to radiate across the top of the shoulder and across the chest line, giving us some work and some openness to the front of the shoulder capsule. This is just in preparation for the arms, so that we're stretching across this area before we actually go into work it. A little bit of preparation. And when we come out of it, just a nice straight arm, stretch should go. And then to come to a point where you can bring your fists onto the floor for me here. And we're then going to, so we've got knuckles on, then we just roll it over. It should be a little bit stronger on the forearms then. So as you go from knuckles and you start to roll the front of the arm down. The straighter that you make these arms obviously too, the stronger the stretch is. You'll now start to notice this one radiates down through this little muscle here, so the brachioradialis, a muscle that gets quite worked when we use the mouse. It gets activated by gripping. So as we turn the hands back over, we are going to return them to fingers. Now I know not all shoulders like this movement, so if it means that your hands have to be here, that's okay, or here, all good. It is tabletop, the feet are hip distance apart in this. So it's like a, like an upside down sort of knee kind of plank, where the knees try to sit in line with the hips. We press through each of the fingers, not just the heel of the hands, and even that idea of pressing through the backs of the knuckles here, so that the load is through the whole of the hand and not just the wrist. In terms of where the head goes, it's either looking straight forward. Some people are content to extend the head back, but this will all depend on what your neck is happy with you to do. Not all necks like being extended back. Again, it's a held pose. It means that we need to watch that we don't hold our breath in doing so. We also want to check in on the breath to give us the cue as to when to come out. So we might start to notice, oh, my breath gets a little quicker or faster or shallower. Then they're all little indicators for us to say, maybe it's time just to rest out. So sometimes it's not even the muscles that tell us it's time to go. Sometimes it's the breath that says, I'm really puffing and panting here. It could even be the wrists for some. Forehead to knees can give us a little bit of a stretch out here and just a bit of a rest. We take the second one. We will continue on. Some people might choose to add a leg extension with this one. You want to watch that the hips don't drop though. So as the leg goes out, the hips don't falter, they stay in line with each other. On the inhale and swing around onto all fours now, which is almost opposite to where we were before. And as we take a few cat-cows, check that the hands or the fingers are nicely spread, and they're under shoulders and the knees are under the hips. For a cat, it's an exhale. For the cow pose, it's an inhale. We just want to move through the spine. Into that cow pose, we reset into a flat back. Take the right leg back behind. Just get the calf a little bit of a stretch here. So it's like you're just going to press the balls of the feet into the mat and push the heel back and away from you. Keep the hips square with the floor. Take the right leg to lift off the floor. And as we find active cat, the forehead and the knee will pull together here.
And on the breath in, the leg will extend out the back. Forward towards the knee. On the exhale, leg behind on the inhale. And if you feel strong enough in the upper body, in between each one, you can do a little tricep push-up. Up to you. You don't have to come all the way down to the floor, but the elbows bend and point back towards our thighs. And we start to add a little bit of arm movement and a bit of work into the triceps here. Exhale as we pull to the center, and then inhale as the leg extends out the back. So let's try one more if you count. And then what we do is we hold the very last one exactly where it is, right leg elevated. Draw the belly in a little bit deeper towards the spine, lift the left arm off the floor, and you'll find yourself now into more of a core balance. So come back and bring yourself and revisit how that navel pulled in towards the spine in your boat pose. This is exactly the same idea. Bend the right leg so the heel comes to the bottom, and then send your left hand around. See if you can bring your heel to your bottom. Now, if we can't get to that point, sometimes just by dropping the knee to the floor will do it for us. And some people might even just leave it there, just having their knee on the floor and bringing their heel into their bottom. It obviously requires a little bit of balance to get the leg off. It also nice, sort of flexible quads as well. And when we release, we'll bring the knees back onto the mat. Take a quick child's pose, and if you feel like your wrists need a little bit of a jiggle, now's the time to sort them out. Obviously, even when we are mindful of not using the wrists, there's still load that has to happen. There's still load that goes into the wrist. Come back up onto the hands and the knees for the active cat on our left side. So we'll do the calf stretch first of all. Press back through your left heel. Bring the left leg up and off the floor. Active on the exhale, pull in. And inhale, send the legs straight back behind the exhale. Draw and pull into each other. Inhale, reaching out back. If you want to add any little push-ups or the triceps in between, once again, you can bend the elbows and start to add the arms in. So all of that just starts to bring more elevation into the heart rate, starts to warm us up more muscle groups working. Obviously starts to create some strength and build strength in the arms. And we'll take one last one. Hold us in that position where we can then draw deeper into that core to release the right arm. Right arm comes around and finds that left foot, heel to bottom, and the thigh lifts. Release the hand and the feet back to the floor. Tuck your toes under. Take down dog for me from here. Look at where those feet are. Align them with the hips. Nice spread of those fingers. Weight through the whole of the hand. You might want to imagine pushing the mat away from you as well. You can feel as you push your hands to the mat but forward. It sits you back into the back body more, so back into the hips, back into the lumbar, the lower back, maybe even slightly more stretch into the hamstrings. And sense how the heels are weighted down towards the mat. And at the back of the thighs, they just gravitate up towards the ceiling. Down dog. Take the left leg to lead back behind, so it's what we know as a three-legged down dog. Before we bring the knee into the belly, look at your hands and step your left foot forward. If it doesn't come in one movement, give it a little help. Hold onto the ankle, shuffle it along. We just want to make sure here that we've got the knee and the ankle aligned with each other. And this is what we call a low lunge. It just means that the hips are going to be lower than the knee, and it's here so that we can stretch out that hip flexor on the the right side. So with the intention now of pressing that right heel way back, like we did that calf stretch, press the heel like you're trying to push it into the floor. And with your left knee, imagine you can reach your left knee forward, though it's trying to come over your left ankle. So left knee forward, right heel pressing back. Soften the right knee down to the floor with the shin going with it. And maybe even let the hips thrust slightly more forward. It's still a hip flexor stretch. But now imagine that this right shin is pressing firmly down into the mat. And you can pull the right hip forward, almost like you're trying to slide your shin along the mat towards the front edge of the mat. Sometimes I'll even cue this as a visual of getting you to imagine that I've got hold of your right ankle out the back, and I'm trying to pull it away from you, and you're trying to pull it out of my grip. It's that same sensation. Let the left hand rest, or left elbow rest onto the left leg. Don't pull back. Just raise the right arm here. So you can still got this sort of thrust forward action. Grab hold of the wrist with your left hand. The left hand holds the right wrist. And we're going to pull it over the left now. Inhale, come back up to the center. Release the fingertips to the floor. And just subtly start to pull out of it a little bit for me. Come up onto this sort of balanced knee position. We're going to leave our left foot literally where it is, but we're going to spin on the right so that we face the long right edge of the mat. And our left foot, it's still pointing forward towards the little short end of the mat. And you can see how this left knee wants to roll on in. So we're going to try and keep it tucked back in line with the hips here. The left arm will go up towards the ceiling. At this stage, the right hand is going to draw this left knee back a little bit. It's just to encourage the left arm to sort of pressing into the leg to stop it from wanting to roll forward. So our trunk's really facing forward. We're either facing the front or the back. Take the right hand down towards the floor and the left arm up. You might just come onto the pads of the fingers, but again, the whole intention is to try and keep this left knee tracking in line with the left hip, not rolling in on us. So you really have to use these bottom muscles to do it. Take the left hand down to the floor, don't let that left knee roll in, and see if you can come down a little deeper like you would lounge lizard, drop the forearms onto the floor. And you can see, just like lounge lizard, that pose, you've got to try and keep rolling this left knee back towards that long left edge of your mat, because it wants to just literally fold in on you. Come up onto more the hands if you're going to the front. Swing back around to face the front edge of your mat. And then this is Hanuman, where we straighten the left leg. We pull the toes back. We press the left heel down into our mat. And this one we're imagining that we can pull our left bottom cheek back to the short end of our mat. Soften back into the left leg and place your palms onto the floor. We'll find another down dog here by sending the left leg back to meet the right leg here. Take a few little steps if you need to. Maybe a little walk out of the legs, the heels up and heels down, just a little bit of a pumping of blood sensation back into some well-used left leg. And then allow the right leg to lean back behind for another three-legged down dog. Pull the right knee into the belly. Look forward, step forward. And it will send us back into that same low lunge again, where the left heel presses back away towards the end of the mat and the right knee reaches forward and tries to clear the right ankle. Soften the left knee down. As we move to crescent, the shin presses down as well. We hinge and we'll thrust the hips slightly more forward. We press the left shin into the mat and pull the left leg more forward towards the front edge of the mat. Again, thinking of, are you having hold of your ankle and pulling it, and you resisting. As
So the right hand rests onto, or the elbow rests onto the leg, the left arm rises up. The right arm comes around to grab hold of the wrist. We pull on the left wrist and tilt left, or tilt right, sorry. As we inhale, square back up, fingertips will come towards the floor, and we will just pry it back a little. This is so that we can push through the right foot and become balanced to come upright. That foot stays where it is, the right one. We spin on the left knee, and we're facing the other side of the mat, the other long edge of the mat. Reminding ourselves that the right knee tracks back in line with the right hip. Our shoulders are going to want to go slightly right, so again, the whole trunk tries to rotate and be nice and square. Use the right hand just to press the right knee back away in line with the hip as the left arm goes and extends up. So it's like a side plank really. We send this left hand then down towards the floor. The right arm goes up. The right hand comes down to the floor, still tracking this right knee in line with the ankle. Come around slowly, drop down to all fours, or elbows, or even just dropping a little lower. Mindful of pulling this right knee back towards the long right edge of your mat. Coming up on the inhale, walking around towards that right leg, humming on as we straighten it out, we drop chest to thigh. Bend back into the right leg, hands will go onto the floor, down dog, with the right leg sliding back there to find the left here. Aligning the feet with the hips, walk the legs out. And letting those heels equally weight down. Press the mat away from you with those hands. Return the left leg back behind you into your three-legged down dog. And exhale, knee to chest, step forward to the front part of the mat here. So that same low lunge. This time keep coming up to warrior or a lunge warrior one where the chest begins to lift up off the leg. And those arms run parallel to the ears. Keep the hips nice and low. And then hands to heart. Soften into this right knee. It's almost so that you can do this little bounce, because we're going to come and catch the right leg. So we're going to balance on the left, grab the right leg. Now balance pose here in standing will be a tree. If we can send this right foot onto the inside of the right leg. And if we feel like we're a little wobbly, then we can hold on to something that's more still. Gaze, keep it still as well. So eyes tend to be glued onto a non-moving spot. If we've taken high arms, watch that the shoulders aren't up near the ears. Engage the shoulder muscles more. We're feeling the armpits draw down towards the waist, towards the hips. Hands slowly come down towards the chest, towards the heart center. As we find a warrior three, this foot slips off, and we send it out back. We keep the balance, we keep the gaze nice and still, and we look now down towards the floor. We can keep the hands here at this little heart center. Feel your weight all the way through this left foot. Big toe, little toe, heel. There's like a little triangle that adds our balance. Step back into your mat on that right leg so the hands can find the floor. It's another down dog. Walk the legs out. That left leg did a little bit of work for us. So therefore the upper hamstrings and the glutes really feel it. Let the heels equally weight down to the floor. Find your right leg behind you now. Three-legged down dog, knee to the belly, look at the hands, little bounce and step forward. Continue if you can into the lunge version. Press through that front foot. That's what gives you the power to lift the trunk up. As the hands come down into the heart center, soften into the left knee. So remember to push off that and catch it. So balance on your right, hold your left. And when you feel like you are steady and balanced, that's when tree comes. It's
almost sort of defeats the purpose of trying to go into tree when the right foot's balancing and wobbling around everywhere. Similarly to add the arms, if you're still wobbling, then the arms just adds more into the equation. Arms are up, knees in line with the hip, tracking back and running the hip. Hands slowly come down to the heart center, warrior three, as we slip that left leg out back and bow over. Find a little spot down there on the floor that you can keep your steady. Now the hands meet the floor, step on back, left and right, walk them on out. Allow those 2 feet to equally weight down towards the floor. Inhale, find a plank pose, and if that's a variation of coming to the knees, that is perfectly fine. Draw the armpits away from the floor, revisit your navel to spine, your boat pose. Find the floor, exhaling, down, down, down we go. One cobra here on your inhale. Keep your gaze always low in cobra. We tend to sometimes want to look out and see what's going on in front, but that'll just put some pressure into the back of the neck. So we want to keep the neck soft. We also want to keep the glutes soft. We want to feel as though that there's no action in this lower part of the back at all. It's simply the mid-back that holds us up and off the floor. And then we're going to see if we can go no hands. We can keep that same nice lift, but without using the hands to keep us into elevation. And very softly place the palms back onto the floor. Push your way back to child's pose. Use those arms. Palms will come together. You can even do a wide-legged child's. And then send the hands over your head. Point your fingers to your bottom. And use this just to try and sort of iron out the backs of the arms after we use them. The plank lower, but also the push-up numbers that we did with our active cat cow. Slowly back out in front. Come up on the next breath in, slide the hands in and let the trunk gradually come and lift up. We're going to prepare to come down into relaxation. So if you have something that you want to put underneath the backs of your legs, if you have a bolster or you have a towel that you want to put underneath the back of the knees, you're welcome to. We'll head on down. Just as we find the mat, the body settles in and it connects back with that very slow breath that we started class with. There's this understanding. Our breathing once again becomes slow.
slowing down. You might notice the nervous system becoming a little more settled. There's this calmness, this feeling of relaxation as the breath slows. As we hear the sound of the meditation roll, it assists us to bring and draw our awareness back. You might also move the fingers and the toes. And then in your own time, you roll and rest to be on one side. How was that? Easy?
No.
Safe?
Oh. Say goodbye to our little online people.